Hey guys, welcome to Battles Gaming and to another episode of my Far Cry 5 community creation series. In this series, I feature other people's maps from the Far Cry 5 arcade, but before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone on the support in the last video, my Far Cry 6 map editor wishlist. That video has been doing extremely well. I already think it's my second most successful video on this channel, so thank you very much for tuning in to that video. Now, if you haven't checked that video out yet, definitely do, as I break down the top 10 features I'd like to see in the next Far Cry map editor, and also be sure to join in the discussion on that video's comment section as well for features you'd like to see in the next Far Cry map editor. But otherwise, today we get into another map from the Far Cry 5 arcade, and I thought considering the recent announcement of Far Cry 6 and its Cuban-inspired location, it would be appropriate to share with you guys today a Cuban-inspired map. This is a team deathmatch map called Tropicoast, made by Jesse Finn Pro and is available to play on all three platforms. Now, a few disclaimers: I actually don't know if this map is set in Cuba, considering I haven't talked to the creator before, but given this map's tropical island location, urban density, and building architecture, I think it's pretty safe to assume this map is set in Cuba, or at the very least based on a collection of countries in the Caribbean including Cuba. Secondly, this is a multiplayer map, and whilst I understand not many people play the Far Cry 5 multiplayer anymore, multiplayer maps have been the main passion on this channel, and so I think it would be remiss of me not to show some of the awesome multiplayer maps the Far Cry 5 community has offered over the game's lifespan. As is the case with every community creations episode on this channel, the purpose of the series is to showcase the talent of some awesome creators in the Far Cry community, and so I'll continue to be producing this series right up to Far Cry 6's release in February 2021, whereupon I'll transition this series to start showing community creations from Far Cry 6. But for now, I'll continue to keep producing videos for the Far Cry 5 community creation series, not just for the growth of this channel and this small community we've got going on here, but also to help you guys out with your own custom map creations. Whether it's ideas you picked up from my own custom map creations, or the custom map creations presented in the series on community maps, hopefully these videos give you guys some great ideas for maps or themes you can build to, or just general tips and tricks or layouts and gameplay dynamics that you want to implement for your next solo co-op or multiplayer map creation, whether that's still in Far Cry 5 or for Far Cry 6. Finally, I just wanted to provide what I think is some much needed assurance for the Far Cry community, and that is that even though a map editor in Far Cry 6 is yet to be confirmed, I think given every numbered Far Cry has had a map editor, we'll definitely see it return. I've seen lots of people in the community worrying about if we'll have this feature or not in Far Cry 6, but I can assure you that Ubisoft always prioritizes their marketing strategies around their campaigns before the editor and the multiplayer aspects of their Far Cry games, and therefore I think it's a little early for people to be hitting the panic button at this stage. The map editor also makes up a significant part of the Far Cry community, and I've already seen many people in comment sections on other Far Cry 6 related YouTube videos saying they won't buy the game if there's no map editor. Now, I'll actually be discussing this topic further in my next Far Cry 6 wishlist, which should be out in the channel next week, or rather, should be out on the channel next week, so stay tuned for that by setting channel notifications to all by hitting the bell icon down below. But now, with the disclaimers aside, let's get into the pros and cons of Tropicoast. So we'll start off with the pros. These are things that the creator has done very well, and I've already briefly mentioned it, and that is that this map is extremely beautiful. The tropical environment really complements the Black Flag assets and modernized time period well. The terrain has been crafted well, with the terrain levels gradually increasing in level from the beach to beyond the playable area, creating the illusion of a larger world and enhancing immersion for the players. Whilst the bulk of the assets are Black Flag oriented, The addition of modernized assets from other games creates this modern habitat of a resort-style island juxtaposed against what looks like the island's historical background and a throwback to the golden age of piracy with these imposing Black Flag Fortress assets, as you guys may see in the cinematic shots or the gameplay. Now the gameplay on this map also flows really well. I would say the map is medium paced, ensuring you have enough time to collect yourself at the beginning of a new life and work out your next strategy of attack. The conflict seems to move around the map, although it's mostly centered around this two-level tiered building which creates a strategic control point for both teams to work towards. Now in terms of cons, i.e. improvements for Tropicoast, a suggestion I would make, whilst can be considered pretty radical, is to actually introduce a driving track around the perimeter of the map. In other words, a road that fully encircles the playable area. Vehicle movement on this map is pretty limited, and whilst I'm going to take a wild guess and say Jesse Finn Pro didn't intend for this map to focus on vehicular gameplay, as most multiplayer maps in Far Cry 5 tend to have their vehicles destroyed pretty quickly, and the absence of vehicle respawning often makes them useless, I still think adding a driving track around the perimeter of the map would spice up the gameplay, adding uniqueness and fun variety to the map. Instead of everyone fighting for the central building I mentioned earlier, there will be opportunities for players to also do drive-by shootings in vehicles, which is a fun experience I've done plenty of in other custom maps on the game. Now most people know that vehicles on Far Cry 5 multiplayer usually makes you the number one target for any enemy with any kind of explosive, so of course if you're still making multiplayer maps on Far Cry 5, think about limiting the explosive vehicles on your map to minimize the chance of vehicles blowing up, and therefore increasing their lifespan. Of course, like I talked about in my Far Cry 6 map editor wishlist, if we do happen to have vehicle respawning in that game, especially for multiplayer, then watch the possibilities of multiplayer maps soar right through the stratosphere. Moving on to the second suggestion, and that is slightly better class balancing. I found the support class to be far superior to the other loadouts, with the M249 slicing up opposition players with ease, and I actually noticed that by the end of the game, more people were using the M249 than any of the other guns. The addition of a sniping class would definitely be most welcome, considering large parts of this map have long engagement distances. The addition of better weapons in the two other loadouts opposed to the M249 class would also be great, allowing the map to have more variety in terms of the gunplay each player would encounter throughout the game's duration. Earlier I mentioned that the map was medium paced, and whilst I enjoyed this, I found that 8 minutes to get 55 kills was a little bit too challenging for either team to achieve, and so I would suggest that the creator either increases the game's timer to 11 minutes, or alternatively decreases the score limit to 40 to 45 kills whilst maintaining the 8-minute countdown timer to make the map more achievable for either team. My final recommendation for this map is to actually convert it into a solo map. This is so more people can experience the map, especially with multiplayer not being very popular anymore. It means that anyone can experience the map at any time, not having to rely on a full lobby of players to try out the map. And if Jesse Finn Pro does see this video, I would suggest either making it into an outpost or bounty hunt map, as I believe the current layout of the map would best suit one of those two game modes. Now I haven't done a community creations episode based on a multiplayer map since my first ever community creations episode 2 years ago, but what I did do in that episode, and what I'll do in this video too, is just quickly run you through some tips and tricks you guys can employ if you do happen to play this map. This is something I also do with the gameplay breakdown videos of my own custom maps on this channel, but the tips for Tropicoast is to 1. Use the high ground, 2. Stay out of the open, 3. Control the central structure, and 4. Use the map's outer player pathways to outflank the enemy. Now the use of the high ground, you can really only obtain that from the central structure, which as I mentioned before is a 2-tiered structure, which means there is a balcony area overlooking the entire street area, which gives you a great overview, lots of cover, and if you can use the M249 to your advantage from this higher position, you're more likely to win the game for your team, And tip number 2, staying out of the open. Well, you obviously don't really want to stay out in the open, such as the long open street areas, because everyone will know where you are, and therefore you're going to be a lot more vulnerable to letting everyone on the enemy team know your position. And tip number 4, to use the map's outer player pathways to outflank the enemy. Well, like I said before, the outer player pathways are pretty underutilized on this map, and so you can actually use that to your advantage because not many people will expect you to hit them from the sides or the behind, so definitely be sure to outflank your enemies by utilizing these underutilized player pathways, and you'll be just fine. But otherwise, that wraps up this Community Creations episode on Jesse Finn Pro's Cuban-inspired Tropic Coast map. There's still another 2 minutes of gameplay left for this video, however you aren't missing much as my team fails to come away with the chocolates, but nonetheless is still a very entertaining finish to the game as the other team leapfrogs mine on their way to victory. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon for future channel notifications if you're new around here. And like I said, this map is available on all 3 platforms, so be sure to give it some love on your respective platform. But as always, I'm Braddles Gaming, I'm signing out now, and remember to have yourselves a great day.